I had to come back to try out Succession Striker, and let me just say they had it right. I'm going to cut to the chase here because I know you really want to just know what's better, Awakening or Succession, right? I'm not going to debate you into a long-winded video that never actually really answers it, so here you go. You want your answer? Awakening. It's better, period. Pay close attention to the time of this upload because as of now, Striker has gone live in Korea, which is where I'm playing now, for any of you that care, and they released it with some massive nerfs from its introduction. This can be absolutely changed in the future patches, but honestly, I doubt it'll deviate much. Now here's the why. We're going to separate this into 4 different parts. What got nerfed, succession mechanics, awakening mechanics, and damage comparison. Part 1. So what got nerfed? The first skill we're going to look at is Knee Hammer. This skill has a forward guard in succession, and it does not have stiffness in succession. In pre-awakening, it does not have forward guard, but it does have stiffness. I believe this skill had stiffness and forward guard in succession, and they've removed the stiffness. The next skill is Wolf's Fang, the Hadouken skill. This skill in succession, they've removed the stun, so it no longer CCs, it no longer stuns. The next skill is Rage Hammer. This is a huge one. They've removed the bound in PvP. The next skill that was nerfed was Wolf's Hunger right here. This skill, it still stuns, but it only stuns on the first hit. You can see that there's a 3-hit segment. There are 3 segments to it, and it only stuns on the first one. So what I mean by that is if I use it 1, 2, 3, where I said 1, that is the only hit that actually stuns. If you hit him on the 2nd or 3rd segment, it will not stun. Crimson Fang also lost its CC. It used to stiffen targets. It lost that as well in the succession tree. It keeps its foreguard, but no longer CC stiffens the target. Part 2, Succession Mechanics. So what really separates and makes the succession tree unique is its short to mid-range mobility. You sacrifice the long-range mobility for better engages at short range. So what I mean by that is you're giving up Awakening, Spiral Cannon, and Monkey Jump and Triple Flash Step. Those are the 3 big mobility skills that you're missing out on. And in return, these are the types of engages that you get. That right there, that's Rage Hammer. You can see the Rage Hammer off cooldown. You get an additional little leap from that Rage Hammer. And that's pretty critical in my opinion because you can actually pan your camera to move around. So I can actually flash step to the right of this target and then Rage Hammer leap back towards the target or behind the target if I wanted to. So it'll look like this. You can see I can 360 all the way around that guy. And that's really big because that will allow me to get to the backside of targets, and that'll just make me a little bit more unpredictable. And that will also allow me to control the space I have between me and the target, because that for a striker is actually really important. The next one that we have is Knee Hammer. Now this is pretty self-explanatory because this is just, well, it's protected now, so now we could use it. In Awakening, if you take the Awakening, it does not have protection, so you really don't use it outside of 1v1s. I mean, even 1v1s, it's dangerous. Depends on how you're using it. It's very situational, but it's actually a very good engage for succession. And I could also do the Knee Hammer into Rage Hammer like I just did right there, and the same thing goes again. The Rage Hammer rather. Will have that little extra jump, which will allow me to not only close the distance at a longer range, but I could also pan the camera, and it will give me that extra mobility that I need. The other thing about Knee Hammer is that now Rock Smash is actually very, very relevant. This is actually a key protected CC in the succession tree, because before this wasn't a thing because Knee Hammer is not protected in standard pre-awakening, but now that Knee Hammer does have forward guard and is protected, Rock Smash has a lingering super armor, So you can actually use that as an engage or to catch targets. So that's what it'll look like. You don't get the little additional hop forward like you do with Rage Hammer, but it's still a viable way to engage. And the super armor there lingers all the way through. Another engage that Succession Striker has is Wolf's Hunger, which is Shift F, this skill right here. It's an iframe when you're invisible. When you're not invisible, you can get CC'd. It's not protected. Okay, so just going straight at the target, this is what it looks like. What really separates Wolf Hunger is that we can pan the camera to control where we actually want to go to. So it gives us huge juking capabilities and positional capabilities. I wouldn't try to really CC someone with this skill, but I would try to use it so that I can get around a target where I can even maybe go in for a knee hammer to rock smash, or even extend that for even further with like a dash to Rage Hammer. So you can see there's just a lot of short range mobility. I mean, I'm doing it as slow as I can so that you can kind of get the idea. You still have Twisted into Nimbus, and you still have Rampaging Predator, and you still have Mass Destruction. These three engages are still there. Mass Destruction is still the big one. Okay, especially post nerf, it's at the end of the day, still that is going to be your main engage. So like a dash, whoops, I normally have that locked. So like a dash into Mass Destruction, like that, is still going to be an engage that is used a lot. So that is what we're getting in exchange for long range mobility, which is double flash rather. You can flash step like 3 times. Spiral Cannon here, which is also a weapon swap, and Ferocious Assault, which is the monkey jump. What Succession does do better than Awakening is that short range mobility, like right in here, like to be able to really not close the distance, but to control the distance at this range between me and the Scarecrow. Succession just does a lot better job. It gives me it just makes me a lot more dynamic as a player. Like I could literally dash past that target and then go back in front of him with a Rage Hammer, and then go back behind him with a knee hammer, and then obviously I could, you know, dash or backstep and then dash forward again. Those 2 skills you obviously have in the Awakening tree, but just to be able to get behind the target multiple times and to control that gap, to be able to have that control is what really separates this tree. It just allows me to backstab targets. I shouldn't really use the word backstab, but there's a lot of classes like Ninja and Sork that have a lot of frontal guards, and this will just allow you to get to their backside just a little bit quicker. Now, the reason why these nerfs are really, really big, the reason why the nerfs are significant, because of the lack of CC. So like if I dash past this target and then I Rage Hammer back around him, like if I'm right here and I get to his backside, which gets me to turn him towards me, so now he's facing towards me here, and then I Rage Hammer. I didn't do it far enough, but if I Rage Hammer back into this position, that could be a CC if that target is trying to hold his if he's trying to prevent getting CC'd from forward guard. That could actually allow me to catch him from his backside. And that's a mechanic that Striker never really had. Let me actually do this correctly. Yeah, so like, and not to mention the hitbox range from Rage Hammer is really big. So obviously I'm just talking about Rage Hammer here. Crimson losing its CC is really, really significant too. But that's kind of the big thing. It's not so much, hey, you know, Wolf's Hunger is different. It's these mechanical changes that you get. And I haven't even really talked about the Wolf's Fang cancels yet, because that's more of a damage thing and a combo thing, and I just don't, this video is not so much a Succession guide. There's a lot of guides for it. Like you can go Rage Hammer and cancel it into the Hadouken there. But that, again, that's more of a combo and damage thing, not so much of an engage, disengage, mobility type of thing. I think what really separates this class, outside of the damage, obviously, is its short range mobility. So the TLDR to this is that instead of the old, like originally, the engages I had were mainly Twisted to Nimbus, Flash Step to Mass Destruction, or Flash Step to Grab. That was pretty much it. In pre-awakening, at least. In awakening, you could also do Monkey Jump, but essentially you're literally doing the same thing. Even if you're using Spiral or Monkey Jump or Triple Flash Step, you're still canceling those into a Mass Destruction at the end of the day to catch them. So you're just pretty much Mass Destruction all day. Succession, I have Knee Hammer. That I can go Knee Hammer to, like, if I'm in this distance, I could literally just do Knee Hammer to a grab. I could go Knee Hammer into Rock Smash. I can go, and we're just talking about Knee Hammer here. I could go Knee Hammer into Rage Hammer, which lost its CC, so I could follow that up again with. Whoops, sorry. I can follow that up with a Mass Destruction or anything really. Mass Destruction, a Twisted, whatever. It's just another engage. Knee Hammer to Rage Hammer. I have Dash into Rage Hammer to engage as well, and I also have Wolf's Hunger to engage as well. All of these skills give me mobility. Wolf's Hunger isn't protected, but it's really difficult to CC someone out of it if they're using it for mobility. If I'm just coming at you straight on, yeah, I can get CC'd out of Wolf's Hunger, but if I'm a player that's using Wolf's Hunger to just position myself in different areas, then it's very difficult to actually get CC'd out of it if you use it to position yourself. So you're way more dynamic. If you can kind of see where I'm getting at, you're just way more dynamic in this range, and when you're more dynamic and you have more options and skills to choose from, you are less predictable and you're more difficult to fight, and you can it allows you to control the fight at your pace a little bit better. Obviously, the better player you play, the faster player you play, the more difficult it will be, but it just gives you a lot more control in this range right here. One more thing on Succession that I do want to mention as far as the mechanics, it definitely has a little bit more sustain as well. You get some good passive healing, like before you would pretty much have to use, like in a PvP scenario, right? Like realistically, before you would have to pretty much use Roaring Tiger and Rampaging Predator into the flow, Bite Off if you had it, to recover your HP. In Awakening, or in sorry, not Awakening, in Succession, you still have those healing skills, but you're also getting more health. You also get more HP recovery from other areas as well. I'm not going to get into exactly all the skills that give you that HP recovery and how it works, because again, this isn't so much a Succession guide. It is a comparison in gameplay versus its Awakening counterpart. There are a lot of videos that show you exactly all the healing that you can get from it, but you definitely have a little bit more sustain and healing from the Succession tree as well. Part 3, Awakening mechanics. Okay, so we get 3 key skills here. The first being Double Flash. It allows us to dash 3 times. Big mobility skill, especially in open world. The next one is Monkey Jump here, Ferocious Assault. This is also protected as Double Flash is, but Monkey Jump, when you land on the ground, you're unprotected. And the last one is Spiral Kanon. This is unprotected, but it's also a good skill to use to get around mobility wise, right? So with that, let's talk about Spiral Kanon real quick. This is a really big skill. It synergizes well between Awakening and Pre-Awakening because you could use it to get into your Awakening stance. One of the key skills in the Awakening tree is Spiral Kanon because it goes very well with combos. The other thing that you need to know about spiral is that if the target is forward guarded, if I spiral, my spiral can ignore the forward guard. I can still CC him if I go through it. The only thing with spiral though is it's a little dangerous, again, because it's unprotected, but it's actually really, like, there's a lot of uses for it. Number one, the damage is really good. Number two, since the damage is good, you could use it into combos. Number three, you can ignore forward guard with it. And then the last point is, again, going back to mobility, I could use it just to reposition myself into other areas. So Spiral Cannon is a key skill in the Awakening tree that you don't get in the Succession tree. The other two skills, Double Flash and Ferocious Assault, was really big because it allowed us to get in and out of combat very well. Like, for example, if I went in there and I Rage Hammered and then Mass Destruction, Leg Drop, whatever it may be, I could Ferocious Assault and Double Flash out of the whole AoE clusterfuck in the middle of the front line. I could get out of that really quick. And that's just a key part of open world group PvP, mass PvP for Striker, and that's just not there with Succession anymore. One of the biggest issues with Awakening, though, is that it is very linear. It's very predictable with its engages, right? So, I mean, yes, you have Twisted and Nimbus, but for the most part, you're either dashing into grab or you're using Mass Destruction into grab. That's pretty much what it is, because Mass Destruction is a skill I can control the direction of my character, and this is really the only engage that I have that allows me to do so, which you still have in Succession, by the way. So I mean, yeah, there are things that I could do, like for example Spiral Cannon into Ferocious Assault into Mass Destruction, but that's about as fancy as it gets, really. Like that's about as much as I can juke on this character. So it's very predictable in that case. So like when I do that, right, like when I dash and then I do Mass Destruction, when that's done, like I'm stuck here. Like I cannot catch any targets. Like that back Scarecrow right there, I cannot actually catch him. So like if I'm going for this front Scarecrow right here and I engage, or actually let's go for this guy. If I go right here and then I engage with Mass Destruction, if that dude has stayed in his super armor, he's obviously not going to just stand there, right? If he moves to where that target is over there, which is very possible because people are always moving in PvP, and I've Mass Destruction to here, there's nothing else I can do. Like the only thing I could do is that the only CCs that I have that give me a little bit of range is Twisted, which clearly isn't far enough, and Somersault, and Somersault isn't even protected. So like that's like one of the biggest issues with Awakening Striker. I can engage, and then first of all, Mass Destruction is super telegraphed and it's very slow. If he moves to like this distance right here, that is the extent of my CC. Then I can catch him with the Twisted, right? But even Twisted is a little bit dangerous because it's a frontal guard. If that other player is there and he knows that Twisted is the only play that I have after he's made that gap, then all he has to do if he's a ninja, for example, is maybe like go step this way to the side and then do any semi mid-range to short range CC, which ninjas have a lot of, and I'm using ninja as an example, and that's going to CC me because it's to my side. And frontal guard, Twisted, like if he's kind of to my side, he can CC me. Like for example, Murderous Intent, right? Like if he does that to my side right here, I can get CC'd. So like, yes, can I go in here, Mass Destruction? If he's this distance, I've got nothing. Actually, that's probably about the max distance. So if he's about that distance, then I could catch him. But then if the other player knows that, he can easily counterplay it because that's all I actually have as a striker. So that's one of the biggest issues, because after you use Mass Destruction, you're done. Like you literally cannot move. You can't use Knee Hammer because that's not protected. You literally can't do anything. You have to either dash again or backstep, or just, you know, like you're just very, very predictable. Versus a Succession, If I go into mass destruction and he's moved, I can still knee hammer, and if that's not enough, I can even do the rage hammer, which also gives me some mobility, and I can pan the camera, and I can move from the rage hammer itself too. So I've got like 3 follow-ups, because you're always adjusting to what the target does, and Awakening Striker simply does not allow you to do that. You just can't do it. All I have is mass destruction. If he's within this distance, maybe I can catch him with twisted, which is super telegraphed. If he's a little further, then I might have to do a nimbus, which again, like, it's super predictable because that's all I have, and there's no variations of that. So that's really where Awakening Striker kind of lacks mechanically. So that's pretty much the trade-off. You get long range mobility. You get which is more viable for group PvP, at the cost of short range mobility. Really, I guess it's short range control. I shouldn't use the word mobility. Short range control, which is what Striker has, or Succession has rather. Part 4: Damage comparison. Here's a comparison in damage between Succession and Awakening. The first segment you're seeing is a clean Succession combo. One thing to note is that both combos are not maximum damage combos. Because of my ping in the global lab server, it's really difficult for me to actually land all of my damage and pull off certain combos because of the amount of desyncing that I'm experiencing. I also want to mention that I lowered my AP down to 225 so I wouldn't one combo the target. The target had 315 DP and was playing a Guardian. This lower AP range caters towards Awakening because of clone damage. Clone damage does not scale well late game. Although I don't really have any footage of it to show you guys, but all in all, with all things considered, I would say that Succession definitely does more damage than Awakening, but not like insane amounts more. There's definitely a difference though. What I do want to mention though, which is actually very significant, is that the damage that you do get from Succession that makes Succession damage greater than Awakening, most of it, almost all of it, is unprotected. And that's something you definitely want to consider if you're trying to decide between Succession or Awakening. In the opening sentence, I said that they had it right. If they hadn't nerfed the Succession upon release, this class would have been pretty amazing. In my opinion, the direction they went with this was to give Striker a buff in the areas where it was weak, by making it a more dynamic, short to mid-range class, but balancing it by removing its long-range mobility. I thought this was a great trade-off. Post-nerf though, it really lowered its ceiling, and that original trade-off with Awakening, it's just no longer worth trading for. If PA takes another look at this and can rework it a bit, it could be amazing, as I would say it's close to being something special, but until then, Awakening it is. I'm going to conclude this video with a quick sponsored message from Exit Lag. If you guys fight high ping like I do, Exit Lag is the way to go, and even though this is a sponsored message, I can honestly say that I've used Exit Lag long before the sponsorship, and it is hands down the best tunneling service I've ever used. Not only do they have a ton of games to choose from, but you can even use it for Google Chrome to access sites that may be blocked in your country. Most importantly, the ping reduction you get from using Exit Lag is a game changer for anyone that wants to PvP or PvE for that matter. If you'd like to try the service or purchase it, click on the link below in the description and automatically receive a 20% discount on your purchase.